Today, I want to focus on the importance of civic education and what that might look like in schools and colleges. When we think about the responsibilities of citizens, we often think primarily about voting. Voting is unquestionably the cornerstone of freedom. The right to vote undergirds all our other rights. To not vote is to turn your back on your neighbors and your community and your country. And throughout our history, people have fought and even died to be treated as full citizens and to be able to cast a ballot. It was 132 years after the ratification of the Constitution before women were allowed to vote, thanks to the 19th Amendment. It wasn't until 1965 and the passage of the Voting Rights Act that African Americans were truly, finally guaranteed the right to vote, despite the 15th Amendment having been added to the Constitution nearly 100 years earlier. That's not ancient history, 1965. Congressman John Lewis was among many who were beaten and who suffered as part of that struggle. And some older African American voters today can still remember having to take literacy tests before being allowed to register and vote. We need to continue to be ever vigilant to make sure that this right is not taken away. However, as I would tell my students when I was teaching, voting, as important as it is only one responsibility of citizenship. The strength of our democracy depends on all of us as Americans understanding our history and the Constitution and how the government works at every level. Becoming informed and thoughtful about local, state, and national issues. Getting involved in solving problems in our schools, communities, states, and nationally. Recognizing that solutions to the complex issues our nation faces today all require compromise. Being willing to think beyond our own needs and wants, and to embrace our obligations to the greater good. Finally, I would argue that our democracy, our communities, and our nation would be stronger if all of us volunteered on behalf of others. None of this will occur automatically. As Americans, we celebrate our individualism and our differences. But to remain a functioning society and democracy, we also have to recognize that we are dependent on society, and society depends on us. All of us, parents, elected officials, educators, journalists, and everyone else, must set a good example for our children and for newcomers to this country and work to make this, in Lincoln's words, a more perfect union. But today I want to argue that our schools and colleges have a special responsibility to prepare their students to do so. Educating students about their role in democracy was one of the original goals of public education in this country, and it should remain so today as our nation becomes more and more diverse. And right now, it is clear that our schools and colleges must do more to meet that goal. The nation's report card shows that only 1 in 5 8th graders and 12th graders have a working knowledge of the Constitution, the presidency, Congress, the courts, and how laws are made. Not surprisingly, we're failing. Even more of our children of color and children from low-income families. Only about 1 in 10 African American, Hispanic, and low-income students have a working knowledge of how government functions. Only 1/3 of Americans even know that Joe Biden is vice president or can name a single Supreme Court justice. Those of us who work in Washington may think, how could this be? But it is the reality. Today, all 50 states and the District of Columbia make some civics instruction a graduation requirement. Over the past couple of years, 14 states have also begun requiring students to pass a version of the citizenship exam to get a diploma. That could be a good start, but it is civics light. Knowing the first 3 words of the preamble to the Constitution or being able to identify at least one branch of government is worthwhile, but it's not enough to equip people to carry out the duties of citizenship. Everyone above a certain age who watched Saturday morning cartoons remembers How a Bill Becomes a Law from Schoolhouse Rock. But that doesn't help them evaluate different positions on issues such as immigration or climate change or taxation. So today I ask our nation's schools and colleges to be bold and creative in educating for citizenship. Make preparing your students for their civic duties just as much a priority as preparing them to succeed in college and in their careers. And I ask educators to work from the broader definition of civic duty that I have described. I ask teachers and principals and superintendents to help your students learn to be problem solvers who can grapple with challenging issues, such as how to improve their schools, homelessness, air and water pollution, or the tensions between police and communities of color.